Welcome back to Heart of Texas Histories and Mysteries. I'm your host, Em, coming to you as always from deep in the heart of Texas. Today, we'll be traveling to the southern part of the Lone Star State to discuss the story of a woman named Josefa Rodriguez, also known as Chipita. Josefa Rodriguez, whose first name may or may not have really been Josefa, was born around the turn of the 19th century, when what we now know as Texas was under Spanish rule. Some sources list her birth date as December 30th, 1799, but other sources state that this date cannot be confirmed. She is believed to have been the daughter of Pedro Rodriguez, who settled in the San Patricio area after fleeing from Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. Chipita lived in a lean-to along the Nueces River and was known for offering her porch to travelers who needed a place to stay for the night. She would provide them with a hot meal and a cot to sleep on and send them on their way. It seems that offering food and lodging to travelers was something Chipita had started out doing with her father, and that after her father died, she continued doing it on her own. In the summer of 1863, a man named John Savage passed through the area, headed for Mexico with $600 in gold. Some versions of the story state that he had been tasked with purchasing horses for the Confederate Army. Others state that he had bought horses for the Union Army and bragged about this in a local saloon, incurring the wrath of other patrons. In any event, he decided to stop for the night and slept on Chipita's porch. The next morning, a servant on the John Welder Ranch was washing clothes when he noticed something strange in the river. It was a burlap bag that contained a human body. That body belonged to none other than John Savage. He had been attacked with an axe, and his head had been split open. Law enforcement quickly learned that the deceased man had stayed at Chipita's the night before. When they paid her a visit, they discovered some suspicious red stains on her front porch. Chipita insisted that this was chicken blood. Some sources state that Chipita's handyman, Juan Silvera, told Sheriff William Means that Chipita had killed John Savage and that he, Juan, had helped her dump the body into the river. Now, there's an interesting thing about Juan that I need to mention. Some people believe that he was Chipita's son. Sheriff Means arrested both Chipita and Juan and took them to the county jail, where legend has it they were both chained to a wall. Since John Savage had been carrying quite a sum of money, law enforcement initially assumed that robbery had been the motive behind his murder. But authorities later located the $600 he'd been carrying. Some sources say it was found in the river. Others say it was found in his saddlebag. Although there were now questions as to why Savage had been killed, local authorities remained convinced that Chipita had taken his life and that Juan had assisted her in the aftermath. Chipita and Juan were tried in the 14th District Court before Judge Benjamin Neal, future mayor of Corpus Christi. There were a number of irregularities in the proceedings. Sheriff Means was the foreman of the grand jury that indicted Chipita. Several members of the grand jury had been convicted of felonies, and several members of the grand jury also sat on the trial jury. According to the Handbook of Texas online, Chipita had little in the way of defense counsel. It's been said that her only words during the trial, which began on the morning of October 9th, 1863, were not guilty. Some people have speculated that Juan was actually John Savage's killer, but that Chipita refused to give any information as to what had happened in an effort to protect Juan, who, again, may have been her son. That same day, the jury found Chipita guilty of first-degree murder and Juan guilty of second-degree murder. Juan received a 5-year prison sentence. While the jury recommended that Judge Neal show Chipita mercy, citing her age and the circumstantial nature of the evidence, the judge ordered that she be executed. He set the date of her hanging for November 13th, 1863, which, by the way, was a Friday. Chipita was supposedly confined at Sheriff Means's home for a time, and it's been said that authorities stopped lynch mobs from attacking her on 2 occasions while she was there. When they brought her back to the county jail to await her execution, they allegedly put her in leg irons and again chained her to the wall. Local lore has it that children brought her candy, as well as corn shucks, so that she could make cigarettes. Both Judge Neal and Sheriff Means were away when the day of Chipita's execution arrived. According to legend, a woman named Kate McCumber refused to let hangman John Gilpin borrow her wagon when the time came to drive Chipita to the site where she would meet her fate. But he succeeded in procuring a wagon and a team of oxen from someone else. He drove Chipita Rodriguez, who is said to have had her hair coiffed and to have been decked in a white dress with blue trim, to the designated spot near the river. Suspended from a mesquite tree, Chipita died a slow death from strangulation, as her neck did not break. According to some versions of the story, her last words were, "No soy culpable," Spanish for, "I am not guilty." One witness claimed that he heard moaning from her coffin after the lid had been closed. For many years, Chipita was believed to have been the first woman legally executed in the state of Texas. However, a slave named Jane Elkins was actually the first. Many people have regarded Chipita as a victim of injustice, wrongly charged, tried, and convicted. As I stated earlier, it's been speculated over the years that Chipita knew Juan murdered John Savage, but refused to implicate him because he was her own child. However, some people have also speculated that Chipita had collected information to help the state of Texas decide which side it should take in the Civil War, and that her murder charge, trial, and execution were punishment for this. In 1985, Carlos Truon, a state senator, introduced a resolution declaring that Chipita had not received a fair trial. Both chambers of the legislature passed the resolution, and Governor Mark White gave it his signature. Chipita has been cast in a sympathetic light through a variety of artistic mediums, including the poem Chipita by Teresa Palomo Acosta, the poem Shadows on the Nueces by Rachel Blunser Hebert, and a screenplay called The Cursed by Alsario Kiri Cadena. Cadena recently teamed up with Carlos Dragon, a screenwriter from Mexico City, to write a book based on the screenplay titled Cursed, The Legend of Chipita Rodriguez. In the 1990s, the University of Texas's music department even performed an opera entitled Chipita Rodriguez, which was composed by Lawrence Weiner, a professor at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Although many details about Chipita have been lost to history, most of the records about her case are said to have been destroyed in either a fire or a flood. Her story lives on in South Texas. She is the subject of ghost stories, depicted as a figure who wails as she roams the area of her execution site or the site of her home, with a noose still around her neck. So there you have it, the story of Chipita Rodriguez. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, y'all.